Oh boy, this week we have reigning Bassmaster Classic champion Jason Christie, and he's going to talk about some stuff that you've never heard him talk about before. This week on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Welcome, friends, family, freeloaders, and fishing freaks. The Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. I'm Dave Mercer, and welcome back, all of our humpers that tune in week after week. You guys are incredible. This is episode 52, which means for over a year, it's just been me and you talking, and thank you. Thank you for growing this show into what it is. A year ago, we had 35,000 followers. Now we're kind of creeping up on 82,000 followers. Thank you. So if you don't already, subscribe and like and do all that stuff that helps make me social media cool. Speaking of cool, the coolest cat on the water lately has been Jason Christie. He is your reigning and defending Bassmaster Classic champion. And as this show drops, we are just a few hours away from starting the Chickamauga event. Stop 4 of the Bassmaster Elite Series. I'm not here at all. I'm actually on the road. But right now, when I'm recording this, I'm here. So I thank you for listening to this show. You've probably heard Jason Christie on a bunch of different podcasts, but I can guarantee you this show goes in a whole different direction that you may never have heard before in the past. And it's a show I'm looking forward to. I mean, watching Christie win the Classic was incredible. And I got a bunch of questions for him since then that I've wanted answered, and I think we'll get the answers right now. Well, we won't if I keep talking, so I'll stop talking so we can bring in our guest, the reigning and defending Bassmaster Classic champion, one of the most feared names in professional bass fishing, from Park Hill, Oklahoma, Jason Christie. Bassmaster Classic champion Jason Christie, and I asked you, wait till the requests slow down a little bit, and I'm thankful to have you here tonight. But have you had a chance to chill out and realize that you are the Bassmaster Classic champion yet?
Dude, this has been crazy. I've been so busy that I've been lacking on normal stuff. I can't get caught up. I can't get caught up on phone calls. I can't get caught up. I finally took Sunday and hired some kids, and we got all of my yard work done. Just because I knew I was leaving for Santee, or not for Santee, but for Chick. And by the time we get back, it'd be this tall. But man, it's slowing down, a good bit. But it's just crazy, how much different it is now. Just the schedule. I mean, everybody wants this and that, and I want to give everybody, their fair share. So, I've done podcast from Will and Bill in South Louisiana to, I'm doing a Canadian podcast now. It's all over the place. So, but it's, I wouldn't trade it for the world, man. It's, things are slowing down. I think with Santee being directly almost after the event.
Yeah.
No, I thought it would be a chance to kind of catch your breath, but really it was just, it let everything build up. After that, when we got home, it was just for a week. Just that next week was either on the phone. We got home at 10 o'clock Monday night, drove through a monsoon after Santee, and I had to be at the news station an hour away at 8 o'clock the next morning. So, and it's been that way since we've been home.
Do you remember, how much of the Classic, the actual, what do you remember? Because even for me, and all I do is host it. You know what I mean? It's such I say this every year. It's the only thing that I consistently underestimate. You know what I mean? And then once it's done, it's like you hit a wall. And I'm just emceeing the freaking thing. What is the recovery like for you? Was it for you? And what do you remember of the Classic at this point?
I remember it. But I've said this in several interviews. I remember it, but it feels like it was 5 years ago. And I don't know why it is, it's it just seems like it's been so long ago. And what's it been? 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. Not long at all. And yeah, I remember it, like, but I have to, it's not like it happened recently. And that's just weird to me. There was a flash, you know, it seemed like the tournament was forever long. And then from the weigh-in till late Sunday night, into Monday morning, it was just a flash. And then it's just been slow ever since then. So, yeah, it's really weird. And I remember everything but it feels like the time I pulled into the arena until late Sunday night was really just a dream, you know, like I really wasn't there, but I remember it. I don't know. I know people think that I'm crazy, but it's just a really weird feeling. And what people don't realize, you realize it, but of what goes on, like, you know, people watch live and they see us fishing, and then we're pulling into the arena.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, we're fishing, we're loading up, you're driving there, you're getting pulled over here to do this, you're getting pulled over there to do that, you're trying to get in line, you get in the arena, you get on stage, and all of that crazy stuff happens. And then we go to the back, what do they call it?
Recovery, the decompression room.
Decompression room and it was weird because nobody said a word in the decompression room. I was just spent. And then we go to the press conference, and then, you know, I end up at 2:30. You ain't gonna believe this. I end up at 2:30 in the morning, Monday morning, fishing off of a boat dock on Lake Hartwell.
What?
Yeah, it was crazy. So one of my friends, a good friend of mine, he works for me like when I'm gone, and just a good kid. Well, him and his girlfriend forever had scheduled to go to that classic because it was my first one back and stuff, and they just wanted to experience it firsthand. Well, you know where we ended up at the Champagne's Toast and stuff like that. So he drove me home, and he loves to fish. And we were staying on the banks of Hartwell, and the dock that I could see had a green light. And I hadn't obviously been on the dock or made a cast or anything all week. And when we got back, he drove me home. We got home at 1:30, and the first thing he did is he goes and gets a spinning rod out of the boat, and we're down there on the dock. I made about 2 casts, and I'm like, what am I doing? So I put the fishing pole down, and I let him fish, and he caught several of them, and it was typical Hartwell. We saw about 20, and he caught 3 or 4. You know, they're pretty smart, but I think we ended up rolling into bed 2:30, 3 o'clock, something like that. But I do have one more thing about you asked me about how much I remember. You were on the stage when all of it went down. And after I think it was the next morning, Shannon and I were sitting in the house, and she goes, could you believe, she said something about the confetti. Like, could you believe how much confetti there was? It's like, I couldn't even see you. And I looked at her, and I was like, there wasn't any confetti. And she goes, no, there was. I said, there wasn't any. Like, I never saw any of it. And she showed me a picture, and it looked just, you know what I mean?
You're covered in it.
Yeah, but that's how like, I don't know. It was a weird experience. Like, I didn't even remember the confetti being on there.
Wow. So. As it all goes down, it's a weird experience to even be up there for. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you're achieving something that you've dreamed of your whole life. And then you're still trying to, like, I'm trying to direct traffic with you. I'm trying to direct traffic with Hank to do the handoff. And it's funny. And I feel like a jackass because Hank's trying to say whatever motivational words you say when you hand off the trophy. And I'm yelling, hey, make sure you go to the X, because I got people yelling at me to make sure you're there. It's just but it's so, and I think it's weirder than anything you experience in your life, really. Like, I mean, it's like the world's biggest surprise party that you don't know you know what I mean? You're going in there and you're like, this could be a traumatizing event or this could be the greatest thing ever.
And the cool thing I think is, we all know, everybody's talked about it, I'm tired of talking about it, but I've experienced both of that. You know, I remember walking off the stage and stepping over your body when you were screaming for somebody else. And And I think that was a big part of it. You know, I've talked about it. That's what motivated me to get up in the mornings, you know, for an Elite Series event. That's what motivated me when I got home to go out here fishing, to learn more and more and more. And all, you know, you build up and you build up. And in literally 1 second, when those numbers flash on the screen, it's just all released. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know, there was just a lot of different things going through my mind, and, you know, a lot of different emotion and stuff. But the biggest thing is you're just like, gosh, I finally did it. And then immediately, you know, I remember being in the decompression room, like, what now? You know, and I don't mean that disrespectful to anything, the trophy or the classic or anything like that. It's just like, gosh, we got to find something else to go after again, you know. And obviously everybody's like, well, just number 2. Well, it just ain't that easy, you know.
Do you worry about that? Because that is one thought that I've thought about with you. I'm like, you have been driven so much, and I think I really understood how driven you were going into the classic, but when I watched you win it, I even understood it more. You know what I mean? Like, it's the coolest thing about my job, that I get to stand beside you guys at the greatest moments and also the tough moments, but like, there's a feeling you feel, and I've, you know, watched it all unfold, and you could just tell how much that event has motivated you. Do you worry that now that you've accomplished it? And I know the right answer is, yeah, of course I don't worry about that. There's lots more to do. But do you worry that, you know, you've had this carrot that you've been chasing for so long, and you've worked even harder to get back and get a shot at that, and now you've accomplished it? Do you worry that you don't have a carrot to chase anymore?
You know, I really would. If I had to answer that question, I would say no. There's so much to go after. You know, there's things outside of fishing. What I mean is not trophies. You know, there's things that I could do around here. You know, and we already do that. Kids, you know, just getting people involved, do things to give back to the sport. But yeah, like, I felt it at Santee. You know, we go to a lake that I've never been on, and I've dreamed of going there, and it was just different. You know, after you've been to the classic, and I'm saying this as humbly as I can, when you've been to the classic and you drive to take off,
yeah,
and there's 4,000 or 5,000 people on the bank, and then you go fishing, the cameras everywhere, people following you, people yelling at you in a good way. Then you pull into the arena with 15,000 or how many thousand people in there, and everybody's yelling, and there's invisible confetti falling and all this kind of stuff. And then you get done, and then literally 6 days later, we go to another event, and it was just like, I don't know, it was just way less than what it was at the classic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't anything about it, and I'm just like, you know, I want to see I want to go crazy again. And but I think that's how high I was at the classic. And then to come back so low at Santee, and, you know, I had Jake again the first day at Santee, and he ended up texting me after the event. I told him, I was like, dude, I don't know that you knew it, but I wasn't there. You know, my mind is still somewhere else. And he's like, oh no, I knew it. He goes, I could see it. But yeah, I think being home, I've only went fishing a half a day. I took my dad crappie fishing, but I think just recharging a little bit, and kind of focus on what's ahead, and to know that there's still a lot of things out there to accomplish, a lot of things. But I promise you, I will have nothing. I'm going to rephrase it. I will have something to fish for each and every tournament. I just seemed like I took one off, so I'll find something to fish for.
And I don't think you should apologize for what you said there. Like you're saying, I'm trying to say this as humbly as possible. I think it's normal. I think a lot of times in media, people won't say stuff like that because they're worried what people will say. Oh, what, Elite isn't but you can't expect me as an MC. I feel that at the next event, and we had a giant crowd at Santee, you know, and I'm thankful for that. But it's still that's what makes the Classic so special. And I think about that kind of every day of the Classic. I try to stay in that space where I'm like, you know, you get to the last day and you're just trying to hold on to your voice and whatever. And, you know, it's like you guys, you try not to run out of fish. I'm trying not to run out of voice. But I'm always thinking, I'm like, come Monday, we're all normal again. This is the greatest 3 days in our sport. Speaking of which, I felt at this year's Classic, before you won, just coming into this Classic, I felt like you, and not just you, there were several anglers and guys who have come back that were in that Classic that I felt like had a totally different vibe. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like our field is so weird right now because we still have people that are fishing their first few Classics and they're partying at the Classic. And then it didn't look like you did any partying until the last day at all. Like, I mean, was I reading that right?
You absolutely. I mean, you're 100% dead on, and I think the best way I can explain that, or to kind of to validate that, is, you know, we're in practice. We haven't even started practice for the Classic. Maybe because Shannon and I got to Hartwell 5 days before practice started. We went straight from Florida to Hartwell.
Okay.
I could be on the bank and watch everything that was going on in the lake, meaning the weather, you know, just get a feel for the lake. You know, and it's like Wednesday, and she's like, you're not in a good mood. So what's wrong with you? And I said, hey, I'm in a great mood. This Classic is on my mind. And she's like, well, we've been at other Classics and you weren't like this. I was like, well, this one's different. You know, and it was like I had a totally different attitude the whole week before and during practice. Like, it was 100% business, and it was the whole time. But even she noticed it. You know, I think I was serious from the time I left Florida, because as soon as we got in the truck in Florida, I started watching old Classics or old tournaments at Hartwell, and you know, a lot of people probably think, well, you're watching I'm watching to know what the other people are watching, so I know not what to do. You know what I mean? Because I know all the other people are watching.
Yeah.
And that's what I did is try to do something. I wanted to see what they would see. But anyway, my point is 100% focused the whole time. I felt like, and it was totally different. And, you know, I saw that in Hackney's eyes. I think Hackney was zoned in pretty good. And, you know, at the Champagne's Toast, the last person that I expected to see at the Champagne's Toast was Hackney. Just because it's, you know, I kind of figured he would go on down the road and get to where he was going. And he shows up, and literally he just walks up to me. He looks at me with that $5,000 Cajun, whatever it is. And he looks at that trophy and he looks at me. He does that about 10 times. He goes, you know, I'm pretty jealous, right? And I was like, oh, I know. And he had that look in his eye. And I'm telling you, there were several guys that had that. You know, Kyle, you could tell he had it in his eyes too. So
yeah, I mean, I felt it. I really felt that vibe from you, from Hackney, from Swindle. You know, there was, but it really, it almost felt like to me, like, boy, you don't know what you got till you miss it. You know what I mean? Like, the best way to refocus is to not be there for, like, I found even just the way Swindle fished, like, for him to be away from the bank, where in this tournament, on paper, everybody would expect him to be on the bank and how he traditionally fishes. But a really mature game, like, there was game plans to win this tournament, whether it worked for one guy, obviously. But you know what I mean? Like, I just felt a different vibe. And do you think that is from being away from it?
Yeah, I think that's a two-part answer. One was being away from it, and one was going and working the Classic at, where were they at? Houston,
Last year?
Yeah, the Summer Classic.
Yeah, we were in Fort Worth.
Yeah. Going and watching that classic and watching these guys flip bushes and stuff, so I missed a couple, and then I go work one, and the whole time I'm watching what I'm missing. They're flipping bushes, they're throwing frogs and stuff, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. And yeah, I mean that's what started the whole process, throughout the entire year last year, and yeah, the entire season. I mean, I felt like, other than a bomb or two, an outstanding season. And then it worked right into the classic. I mean, it's just the classic doesn't start, preparation for the classic doesn't start on Friday or the week before. I mean, it's just that's what I thought about.
Yeah.
Until I won, is just, the little bait that I caught him on. Dude, I've kept that secret for 5 or 6 years, knowing that sometime I'm going to be in the classic and I'm going to get to use that. So that's just what it's all about. I don't know. I've talked to so many people, I don't remember who I've told this, but so many times when I was playing ball, out there hours and hours shooting, you always did the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you made it, you won the championship. And if you missed it, you didn't. You got fouled and you got to shoot again. And that's how it was for me. Even last year, I mean, up until the classic, I'd be out here fishing, and I kind of feel myself losing focus, and I'd be, all right, you got 30 minutes till it's time to load up. You got to catch 2 3-pounders to win. Can't tell you how many times I've done that. So the preparation for Hartwell started way, way, way back. I mean, it just forever ago.
So riddle me this: after a tough Santee, does that make you even tougher to deal with on the Elite Series this year? Just as far as, like, I guess I don't know if you ever fish this way, but you're going to fish to win every tournament. I mean, I think you try to do that as often as possible, but is that, I don't know, is Angler of the Year still an option?
No, I think with the bomb at Santee, it's probably out. My biggest flaw as a fisherman is fishing the way that I do to win, I feel like, every time. And that's why if you look at my results, you'll see, we'll just talk about last year, 60, 50, 5 top 10s, another top 10, and then 80. Dude, that's just how I fish. Like, there's at no point in the practice or during the tournament do I say, well, how can I go catch a limit? I might go try to catch a keeper once if I got 3 or 4 big ones, but I don't ever lay up. And now I even have a pass to do it even more. I'm in the classic for next year, and I can fish every tournament like that. Like, I can just go and it happened at Santee. I had a pretty good practice as far as just throwing a spinnerbait on the outside of the trees, and I was catching a lot of fish and catching some good ones. But I knew it was all wind related. And literally the last 30 minutes of practice, I did the absolute wrong thing that I needed to do. I picked up a frog and I had 5 big bites, and I was like, done. This is what I'm going to do, because I thought I had a chance to win doing that. And you know how you get lured into the rabbit hole. You just, it's 10:30, you hadn't had a bite, and all of a sudden you catch a 4, you lose a 5, you have a 7 or 8 blow up on it, and then you're like, well, I'm all in now if I wasn't before. So, it was just one of those events where I think there was a lot of things going on, but that's how I'm going to fish the rest of the season. I mean, going to Chick, going anywhere we go, like, I'm just, there's no 50th or 40th, really doesn't matter,
That makes you kind of scary, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun. I've never been in this position where I get to fish 2/3 of the season, just like I'm going to fish a jackpot every day.
Will you go pre-practice the classic now that you're in it? And I don't know, is that something you normally do?
I never do it. And I never pre-practice. The only time I've ever pre-practiced is whenever we came to Grand, just because it was so close, and I hadn't been there much lately, but I will probably there, I'll probably catch an event that we're coming through there. I just want to go idle, and scan and stuff like that. And I don't believe in pre-practice. That's anti me 100%, because I think going into an event, you can have too much going on, too much in your mind. I think a guy needs a couple ideas and maybe a secondary, and that's it. Because if you get too many, after an hour with your A game, you're like, well, I'll go to B, C, and then you work all the way down. You don't give it enough chance. So, but I probably will go take all of my rods out of my boat and just idle for 2 or 3 days. And that'll be it for me.
Do you take all the rods out of your boat just to make sure you idle for 2 or 3 days?
Yeah, because what happens, you idle over and you're like, yeah, it's December. They're not going to know that I was here a month ago. And you start fishing, and then you lose all that idle time. So, yeah.
Well, what is the most, you've had a chance to bring the trophy home and everything. What's the most proud moment? I mean, everybody saw what happened on the stage, but I'm sure, and I always think about this, it's the truth about life. I mean, those minutes, those seconds on stage will flash through your head till your dying day. You'll always remember some of that, but probably from the Classic, it'll be a bunch of stuff that none of us saw. But what is the most proud moment for you bringing that trophy home?
I think the most proud moment that I can remember is and it has nothing to do with the trophy really, is immediately after we come off stage, after we went off stage, we FaceTime my kids, and they're in different places, so it's not like they were together, but we FaceTime them, and they were just bawling, and they'd be upset for a second, and then because they weren't there, and then they'd be like, and they were so into it, and they followed it so tight. And even the following week, you would see something come out in the media and they'd send it to me, or they'd be talking about it. But I think just being around them, and then, my parents were there at the event all 3 days. Shannon's parents were there. So it was kind of a home, it just felt kind of like home. But I think one of the coolest things is we live on a, I don't know, 1/8 of a mile driveway. And as soon as we turn in, there's signs all day. This is 2 weeks after the Classic, or 3 weeks. We turn in, there's signs all the way down the driveway. I open it up and there's a banner in my garage. There's beer and pizza on the table and balloons. Hell, we just took the balloons down a few days ago. So, it was just all of that stuff. Like I said, it was just so much time between the Classic and getting home.
Yeah.
But I won't forget any of it. There was just so much. They had a big digital banner going on in town here, and
I saw that.
Yeah, it's just it was crazy. But I think when you share it with your family is when it means the most, because they've been on the ride too. They've experienced. They know what I've been through, and I know what they've been through. Heck, I have the easy job. They had to sit and watch Bass Live all day and know that we all lie.
Yeah. Oh, you do. And I'll be honest. I like that you guys lie. It makes my job a lot better. Yeah. Did you brought it up. So was that, I don't know there's no rules. We just we pay you $1,000 if you guys get it right. And
if those one, if
that part of the plan to manage spectators or to manage.
No. I've been told, I don't believe this, but I've been told by reliable sources that I'm usually 2 pounds light. Okay.
Usually.
Or so. So they had me in as 13 something. So we'll say I had 15 3/4. In the last 30 minutes, I culled twice. And you think about Jake knows. Jake's the only one that knows. I would literally run as fast as I could, shut down, make 3 flips, pull the trolling motor up, and take off again. And Jake is the camera guy. He's the one entering in Basstrak. He doesn't have time to do any of that. He's trying to catch everything on camera. So, and I was glad, whenever we loaded up, Jake had asked me a few questions. And by the way, I listened to Jake's podcast, and I love him. He had everything. all of the facts that he stated were true, but they were just a little off as far as what day they might have happened or whatever. I never
just so you know, I wanted to have him on here tonight, but he's got busy with other podcasts lately.
Oh, really?
It seems he's a big podcaster now.
But I don't even. What were we talking about?
We were talking about what happened with the Basstrak and Jake filling him out, and then you listen to Jake's show.
Yeah, but he. So anyway, he's just busy, but whenever I get in, and I told myself I wasn't going to look at Basstrak, and he told me, or he didn't tell me, but we're idling in. He goes, I thought I'd lost, and I'm telling myself I didn't lose any fish. You boated everything, you fished the way you want to, whatever. And just be prepared to lose because you didn't have that 20-pound day like you needed to win. And then Jake's over there and he's got his earpiece in. And he goes, and he hasn't said a word. He got so quiet about lunchtime. It was scary. Anyway, he takes his earpiece out and he says, what do you think you really got? And I said, it really doesn't matter, but probably 16 and a half. And he puts his earpiece back in and he says, is there any way you can have 17? And when he said that, like my gut just fell because I knew that he was talking to studio or Zona or whatever. And I knew that at least I was in the conversation. So that's whenever I started getting really, really nervous. But then I get in the truck and I look at Basstrak and I'm driving back and I'm thinking, I'm going to text Shanna and tell her that it's going to be closer than Basstrak has it out, And then I get thinking, well, Kyle, he's usually that -2 or 3. So anyway, I typed the text out to her and I was like, no, I'm not going to send it. Let's just let them, I backed out of that. And I was kind of glad because, their expectations after looking at Basstrak weren't here. And it was a surprise to all of them. And I think that made it even better. Shanna told me that my mom had convinced her that we had lost because Stetson had caught him and stuff like that. So it was, I think that was one of the coolest parts is even the people close to me, they didn't give up, but they were kind of expecting it not to go our way too, to see the surprise. I was surprised, but to see the surprise of everybody else, it was pretty cool.
I really wish we would. And I mean, maybe we will. I know they'll never shut Basstrak down, but I wish they would make it. I don't know that would help either. I wish they would make it so anglers can't look at it on the final day, even at the elites. The first 3 days, that's fine. On the final day, just because I think, to me, one day when you're all done doing this, I believe that your classic was more special than others because you didn't know, and nobody and I've explained to other people, I'm like, when you win the classic, it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, they're all fans of the sport. You're going to get an eruption from the crowd. Yeah. But I looked out in the crowd. I seen people crying. I seen people, and it wasn't. Here's the difference in the reaction. People sprang to their feet and jumped up and did whatever without even thinking about it. They were just that excited because. So I do think that's one of the most valuable things our sport has, and we need to protect it. Would you be in favor of that? Like saying you can't look at Basstrak on the final day?
Well, the easy fix to that is just shut it off at the first check-in time.
Oh, I'd love that.
You know what I mean? Because we can't look at it during the tournament.
Yeah.
So you just shut it off then. And usually all of your movers and shakers are done by then anyway, but just shut it off. We can't look at it. And if we tried to, it would be gone. I would like that better. But the bad thing is most guys are just going to call somebody and say, okay, what was Basstrak like, but still, I'm not that kind of guy. I did look that time just because, gosh, I picked my phone up and put it down. I had to because I wanted to know how close it was, if I even had a chance or if I was building myself up. And, I've won a lot of tournaments over the years. And one of the things that in winning a lot of them, I usually knew before I got on stage if I won or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Sabine, I really didn't, but I kind of had an idea. Dude, at Hartwell, I didn't think I did. So, the reaction that you seen, that everybody saw from me, that was surprise for me as well, So, and I think that's what makes makes it so special is when we have those close events like that and so much is on the line. Nobody knows who you're going to win. I don't know. I see positive and negative, but if they just shut it down, at check-in time, I think that would help some.
Yeah, and you're right. You're going to get told. I mean, you're going to get told by media. You're going to get told by everybody you run into. But you don't have a device to hold.
I got to defend Bass and this.
Okay.
That Basstrak being wrong created a lot of drama. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, it did. But it would have created the exact same amount of drama if they turned it off at check-in. You know what I mean? It would have been the same with everybody. I hate having something for somebody to look at and start doing the numbers. You know what I mean? All you need is just a little bit of doubt. Just give us a half hour or something. I think I just think it's really important. I mean, obviously it's a big part of my job, but I think it's important for the sport because that's the only time in this sport you experience what you experienced. Like you never experience on the water. I don't care how big the flotilla is. It's not that arena feeling with an arena just jumping to their feet because, you won. And I think, I just think it's one of the coolest things about our sport. So we'll see. I mean, they don't listen to me a lot, but they might listen to you. You're the Bassmaster Classic champion.
I can see both sides, but I do like the suspense. I mean, the perfect scenario is we just can't look at it. I mean, I'd be fine with that. All right, no more. And I want to make that clear. We can't look at it throughout the day.
Yeah.
What happens is when I look at it, in most cases, it's whenever I get up there and I'm in the bag or at the tank line, I'll look at it. And there's times that I don't, but that if I do look at it, that's the only time. So I looked at it about halfway into the drive back to Hartwell, back to Greenville, which was an hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was weird because nobody texted me. Nobody called me. One person texted me, Prosnick. He's like, "What you got, bub?" He said, "What you really got, bub?" And I didn't respond to any of that. So, yeah, it was fun.
That's weird that nobody texted you. All of a sudden, for the first time, probably that week, all of a sudden, quietness.
I think because everybody would thought that I probably lost.
Yeah.
But if they had thought that I'd won, I think it'd have been ding ding, good job, or you had a good day, but not a single text other than Prosnick.
Weird. It and then it's like you got shocked by lightning. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden you went from this bewildered wondering for an hour while you're driving and dealing with, doing interviews for media and everything on your way in. And then all of a sudden, boom. And one of the cool things I've heard you talk about in other podcasts is something that I never thought another individual on earth ever paid attention to but me. That split second between the score coming up and it being official, like that's panic mode because I'm always like, if I read this wrong and say the wrong thing, and then I heard you tell the story, you're like, I started jumping before Mercer said anything, and I wondered, what if I read it wrong? Dude, I bet you, I always wondered, do I read the numbers or do I read the angler's reaction? Like if you reacted wrong, I might have just announced you as the champ anyways, because it's hard to believe like that millisecond. It's like time slows down, and I can only imagine what it's like from your standpoint.
I think my arm was already here before you said anything. Like I was, because I was just, I had that, I want to look, but I don't want to look. But everybody knows where the box is. Everybody knows. And when I saw 17.9, and then, I'm getting older, so my vision's not as great as it used to be. But I thought, what if it was 17.3, instead of 9? Or I thought, but not at the time. But I saw 17.9, and I'm telling you, I could have ran through a concrete wall off that stage and right through a wall.
It was awesome to watch. It was to me one of the perfect. What? You're communicating there. Oh, you're parched. All right. Well, get the champ some water. Somebody, please. Craft services.
Yeah. Water.
What does it? Winning this event and your Cherokee heritage, does that stand out to you as I don't know, statistically, are you the first native angler to win the Classic?
I
I
think
believe.
so.
I think so.
I would think so. I know that. I think so. That's the first time I've thought about that. But I think that you're right. There could be some, but I would be surprised if there was somebody else. I'm trying to think of the past winners, but yeah,
No.
I don't think that there is anybody.
I mean, Rick Klum maybe a little bit, but
Yeah, he might be, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some of the guys in like the 70s and 80s, but the only one that I could really think of that used to fish bass, he never won the Classic, was Marty Fourkiller from just down the road here. And he was probably more Cherokee than me. But no, I don't think, unless Clun has a little Indian blood in him, I don't think it's been anybody else.
Does the fact that I'm the first person to bring that up to you, like over a month since you won it, does that prove how messed up our world is right now? Like 10 years ago, that would have been, and now everybody's so worried to say anything that would offend anybody, except on this show, because we figure we've offended people already. But I think that's something incredible. Like, I think that's going to inspire generations to come.
Right. And so many messages, on the posts and texts and stuff like that. And a lot of the texts I got, are from people around here, Cherokees and stuff. And they might be in Oklahoma, they might be in New York, but there was there'd be a lot of those, hey, you did us proud and stuff like that. So I knew it. I knew that, I had a lot of support from that group, but I never really thought about the first, Native American to win. Cherokee, I know for sure, probably Cherokee, but I'm, Native American. I would think so.
Yeah. Yeah. So congratulations. Another accolade you didn't know that you had. Speaking of awkward, I had an awkward exchange, and I don't know if I've explained it to you yet, but so part of it because you were there for part of it. So Takumi, did you hear this?
Oh, I heard the second part of it. Yeah. Yeah.
I felt horrible because they told me it was whoever does it. So we brought Takumi up, and that's what they said. They said it'll either be Takumi or Christie, and it's the person who doesn't win that gets this. And it sounded kind of weird to me, but I'm like, well, whatever. Maybe there's some other. So I feel really bad that you took Takumi's money.
I don't feel bad at all. Yeah, I remember I was at the Champagne Toast and somebody said something and I was like, no, I know the rules of that stuff. And I don't think that's, but it may have been different in the Classic. I'll be honest with you, that was the last thing I was worried about at the time. I was like, if he needs that, he can, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But, I actually did the picture today, so I know that I got the check.
Okay. All right. Well, no. And just to remind you how awkward I can be, it was me that brought up the Champions Toast. I still didn't know. Like you're standing there. You and Takumi were taking a picture. Takumi said, "Hey, will you take the picture for me?" I'm like, "Hey, you won him $20,000." And that was when it all came down crashing.
I looked at you like, what? Yeah.
It was the perfect storm of stupidity. What happened on the stage happened. And then just by luck, me and Takumi are walking into the hotel at the same time after weigh. And then I'm like, Takumi, you won. And he's like, I won. So it was horrible. I feel bad. I feel bad, but Takumi will be fine. He'll be fine. And sorry for putting you in a weird situation like that.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Won't be not the first, won't be the last.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, I want to take this in a different direction if you're willing.
Okay.
There's something, and I've done some research on it, and it's part of your heritage. And if you're willing to talk about it, the little people of Cherokee. I mean, if you Google that, there's a lot of different stories and tales that come up. It's part of your heritage. Is it something you're willing to talk about?
Yeah. I mean, we can, it depends on what your question is. Oh, you just want me to give you my explanation of it?
Yeah. But what is that? What is it to you?
So, a lot of those stories and things like that, no matter what culture you come from, are for different reasons. There's always usually a reason behind it. And I think about the little people as something that probably started a long time ago whenever, there was teepees and stuff like that and bad things in the woods. And I think maybe that the older people told the kids that, there's, little people out there, you just need to be where they wouldn't go out there and want to talk. That would be my thinking. But, where the little people kind of comes from is, they live in the woods and, they're little people and there's good and there's bad. It's just something that is in the culture of the Cherokees. And maybe, I don't know about the rest of, is it just Cherokee when you Googled it, or is it?
From my research, it's just Cherokee. I mean, that's.
I think it might be, but it wouldn't surprise me if another tribe didn't have something else, kind of down the same lines. So, yeah, that's there's a lot of different things out there, some good, some bad, as far as the tales, in the woods and things like that. I remember when I was a kid, we'd be walking the dirt roads at midnight or something like that, and you see a flash through the trees, and you have 4 or 5 buddies, and the buddy in the back, you go, "Oh, that's a hilty gilly," and you just take off running because you don't even know what he's talking about. So we as kids could have made up half of the stories that were out there. So,
do you have any experiences with it?
I've never seen one personally, like in the woods deer hunting or anything. But as I get older, I see my dad. I think he turned 70 this year. As he's gotten older, and I think as I get older too, history becomes more, and your culture becomes more of who you are. I don't know why that is, but you are. But there's been some things that there's a cool story. I've only told a few. Shanna's sitting over here laughing at me, but so my dad had 5 brothers. Yeah, 5 brothers and a sister. But anyway, 2 of those brothers are gone. One of them was very instrumental in my fishing. I mean, like, he took me fishing, taught me a lot about fishing. He's gone now. And then the other one, he didn't fish so much. He was kind of like the little bit of everything, but he was really involved in all of that stuff. Okay, he lived by himself, and for some reason he was more involved than a lot of people. And I remember in 2012, going into the 13th season, I'm getting ready to leave. That the next morning, like at 7:00, I'm leaving for the first tournament. And my uncle, and he's one of those guys, I loved him like everybody else did, but he's one of those guys, when he calls, you like look at the phone, you're like, God, I want to talk to him. I don't want, sometimes you want to sit and talk to him for an hour and you're like, I don't want to call. I don't want to talk to him. So anyway, my kids are in bed. They're younger. They're in bed. It's a school night. And he calls me, and I put the phone down. And then a little bit later, he texts me, and he says, "Hey," he said, I just went outside and had a talk with the little people. And he said that if you go get something from your kids and keep it on your person the rest of the year, that you're going to win 3 tournaments. Dude, I had won 1 up until this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go from 1 to 3. So I literally, I remember reading the text, and forever I kept the text on my phone. But I ended up dropping it in the lakes, and that was before all the backup stuff. So I lost that text. But I remember reading it and just laying it down, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, after 5 or 10 minutes, I'm like, can't hurt anything, I mean, like, you've won 1, so let's see. So I remember going up to my oldest, and she was still awake. She was studying. I'm like, hey, I need something, anything that you got that I can keep in my pocket. And she I don't remember the order. One of them gave me like a little medallion or something, and I just take that. I go to the next one. She's still awake. She gives me a little keychain, and my youngest, she's already asleep. I literally like wake her up. I was like, I need something small. Well, it worked out where she gave me something, and one of them had a keychain, but I could put the other two on the keychain and hook it together, and I could keep it in my pocket. And I still have that. I'll finish that later, but yeah, I kept that in my pocket religiously while I was fishing. And that year I won 3 tournaments.
Wow.
Yeah, I won an Elite Series. The next week I won an FLW, and then a month later I won another FLW on Grant. So, I mean, and it was weird because religiously kept that on me. And at the end of the year, I didn't know if that luck would carry on to the next year or if I needed to get something new. So I would keep that in one pocket. And then that year I went up and got something new and kept it for the next year. And my sister at the time was making jewelry. I think after the next year, she took all of those and melted it down and made it into one. So I didn't have so many things in my pocket. So, and what I remember out of all of that was, and I think this might have been the purpose of doing that, is I would be out there on the water and, you're going crazy. You're trying to catch a bass. And then all of a sudden you just stop and you don't stop fishing, but you just stop going crazy. And you're like, you kind of put your hand in your pocket. And you're like, I got the luck in my pocket. It just calm down. Everything's going to be fine. But it would just at the times that I would be the craziest, it would just slow me down and kind of put me in slow motion. And I don't know. That's, but yeah, I did it. But let me tell you, I also did it like in 16 and 17, and I didn't win 3 tournaments. So it just so happened that it worked out that time. But yeah.
Well, he never said you were going to win 3 tournaments every year if you do it. I mean,
he just said that year. But, I didn't tell anybody about that for a while. I mean, I told, a close friend here, a close friend there. And then Zona and I were shooting a show, and I told Zona about it. And he just we were actually kind of in the area where you would think there would be a lot of them. I mean, real river bottom looking fishing and stuff. And, you can kind of see him start looking around crazy. So I haven't told a lot of people about that.
Well, and I'll be honest. I mean, Zona was the conduit, obviously, where I kind of started. And he told me about it several years ago. And at the time, he was like, man, me and Zona, we bring up everything and make everything a joke. But I mean, as I did research on it, and I'll be honest, you also know, I always say at the beginning of these podcasts, I ask 2 questions. Anything you do want to talk about, anything you don't want to talk about. This is the first topic I ever approached someone and said, will you talk about this? Because I do think I think if you look at the history, and I mean, that story in itself, there is some pretty amazing stuff, whether, and whenever you bring up something like that, people turn it into do you believe in this or that? And I mean,
what's funny about that is I never responded to him. I never called him. No, I mean, I never texted him and said, hey, I went and done it. And he never said anything else about it either. So did he really talk to him? Or did he just say that? I mean, maybe he was joking and he's just like, I'm just going to see if he'll do this. I don't know, because I never asked him about it. I mean, we had that kind of relationship where I would see him deer hunting and, how many deer did you see? Okay. All right. Well, see you tomorrow. And it wasn't what'd you get for groceries this week? It was that kind. So I never really, that's why I didn't answer his call at 9:30 at night, is I didn't know if he was going to be one of those really long conversations, what you're talking about, or one of those short ones. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Was that the same year you won the Elite and you had a phantom school of fish just appear in front of you, went from 10th place and they had to make it the tournament was actually like a crime scene reenactment, like short of having Tommy Sanders walk out in a trench coat and a pipe and be like, here's where it all happened. They had to reenact it because you had a group of, can you tell that story? Like what happened that day? Because I only know the trailer side when everybody was panicked.
They made it more dramatic than what it was. That school of fish had been there, but the first 3 days of the tournament, we had like crazy conditions. So they might have been schooling, but they never came to the top. And the last day we just finally had the right conditions and then they came up. But what's funny after that event, that was my first Elite Series win. And I'm like I come off the stage and I get in my truck to drive home and Zona calls. And I answer and I'm like, hello? And he's just quiet. He's like, man, he goes, I'm sorry. Like just quiet. And I was like, what's wrong? He goes, we didn't have a camera with you. That's back whenever they only had 4 or 5 cameras. And he said, we don't have a clue how we're going to do this TV show. He goes, I don't know. I just want to tell you, I'm sorry. That's not how we do it at Bass, all that kind of stuff. And I pretty much just told him, I don't care what you do because I got blue trophy and $100,000. You can do whatever you need to do. TV show is the last of my worries. So, that show was, and everybody else knew it too. I mean, I had buddies calling, dude, that wasn't you. Those weren't your, everybody knew it. So they did the best with what they had to work with though.
Yeah. I mean, we've never shown more footage of a boat being trailered up to a weigh-in. I mean, it kept flashing back to you. But what else are you going to do? I mean, that's all they had. And they did move a camera to you. But by that point, I think you only caught like one other fish and it was a small one. And the damage was done.
Hey, one of the coolest things that happened that day is my marshal's sitting there. And dude, it happened fast.
Yeah.
Like and I literally have 18 something. I have a live well full. And there's nobody around. It's so fun. There's fish blowing up for not 500, but 300 yards. Just the whole top 10 could have fished in there and everybody would have caught 15 pounds.
Wow.
But somebody, whoever's in charge of calling, calls my marshal and he has it on speaker. He says, hello. He goes, hey, this is so-and-so. You entered wrong in Basstrak. You got Christie at 18 something. And he goes, no, it's right. Because up into that point, the biggest stringer was like 13 or something like that, maybe 14.
Yeah.
No, he's got at least 18 already. And you can just hear him go, oh, and hung up. And then, of course, the closest boat was like 40 miles from me because I was the only one way up the river. So everybody else was in that other arm.
I remember being in the trailer that day. And because it happened so fast. I mean, it was a bigger bag than we'd seen all week, and it happened so fast. And then the initial thought is, well, he's in 10th. The guys ahead of him, if they're going to catch him, and they weren't, and it was just a fire drill. But it's all part of I think it adds to the fable that is Jason Christie. I mean, that's what makes Gerald Swindle say that you see a puff of smoke and follow.
I got to tell you a story.
All right.
Have you seen Wesley Strader's podcast? Oh, not podcast, but his post about the cedar limb.
No.
So, Wesley, it's been 5 or 6 years ago. We were somewhere, I don't remember where it's at, but he literally, I don't know how well you know him, but, he just come up and just as serious as he be. He's like, Christy? He was like, just tell me, how do you catch so many bass? Was his words. And I was like, I don't know. He goes, well, he's like, I'm not catching them that good. And do you ever get like that? And what do I need to do to get better? And I literally just turned to him. I was like, well, at home, whenever I'm not catching them, I say, I just light a big fire and I burn wet cedar and I take my clothes off and I dance over it, dancing the smoke. And literally walked off and didn't say anything else to him. And about, I don't know, a month ago, right before the Classic probably, he does a video on social media and he's got a fire going with smoke and he's like walking himself through it, going to dance in it. He didn't take his clothes off, obviously, but it was funny that he remembered all of that. And that's one of the things that he would always say whenever I'd see him, like, hey, are there any cedars around here so I could burn one and catch more bass? But it's kind of funny. Swindle keeps me laughing out there. You never know what that guy's gonna say.
No, he's a lot of fun, and I mean, I'm pretty sure that Wesley did that before. I don't think he waited 5 years, dude. If you're being honest, I mean, it took him 5 years to make a social media post out of it. I'm sure he's been out there naked dancing a time. I mean, people will do anything. I mean, anglers are never superstitious, but if you talk to them, you're like, you tied up to the same spot. I noticed you launch in the same order. Like they're very superstitious. So before we leave the little people, have they been, was it just that time where you've ever?
Yeah. I mean, as far as something that cool.
Nobody told you were going to win the Classic or anything like that.
No. I think that, I don't want to say going into it. I felt good about it. I didn't think that I really did until I've watched some of the videos and stuff. I watched the video that Bass posted, and just I don't know, there was just something different that week about me than in the past. And I don't know how to explain it, but, I just feel like I was dialed in on, up here. There was nothing else going on and just worried about fishing.
You were definitely in a different place. I mean, dude, I felt it all week. Like you were the first, you didn't even know this, but you were the first person I saw when I pulled up to the hotel, when I got in town on Monday or whatever, or Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday morning. And normally I would holler at you, whatever, but like you were going to your truck to get something. And I even watched you there. I'm like, dude's going to war this week. Like you really did feel like, I mean, you see different attitudes at that point of the week. I mean, it's early in the week. You're not fishing that day, but I think you could feel that vibe from you all week long. And that's what I think everybody saw when it was all done. It was the biggest, on me on the stage, it felt like the biggest sigh of relief in the history of mankind. Cause you were just like, and I felt it too, dude, because trust me, you traumatized my ass. You know how, I mean, it feels horrible to have to step over me to leave the stage, but do you know what it feels like to be laying back like a dramatic idiot yelling about another guy and seeing your leg step over me? I was worried that you wouldn't win it. So I think that entire arena felt that, you know what I mean? And ultimately it's kind of the story that we've talked about several times. All of those close ones built this story. Do you feel that now that it's done?
Absolutely. There was a reason I didn't win, a long time ago. I don't think I would ever appreciate it as much as what I do now, being there, being close and having so much on the line, and things changing. It just, you always wonder when things happen that aren't good. It's supposed to happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was supposed to leave because now I'm back like where I want to be. I just know that I've been over, I know where I want to be, and I know, how hard it is to win the Classic and then to finally do it. I mean, it was all supposed to happen just like it happened. I know that's weird to say. I mean, but it just was. It wouldn't be as special as what it was. I mean, I saw it in the people's eyes, in the arena. Whenever I drove around, and even just the Bass staff, just everybody. It was, people can walk up and shake your hand and say, "Man, you did a good job," and then people can walk up and shake your hand. And you can look in their eyes and know that they sincerely, their eyes are teared up and they sincerely just like, and that's what made it special. The whole thing was just everybody was super excited for that. And I think the biggest thing, they're like, gosh, if he doesn't win, he's going to drive off the dam. So, yeah. Well, like that too. I kind of told myself that last day, I think more so driving, like if I don't win this one, I'm not going to have that many chances. You just don't have that many chances. I don't care how good you are. First, you got to make it to the Classic, and then you got to make it to the last day. And on that last day, you have to be a contender to win. That's not easy to do, all three of those together. So you don't have that many chances, even if you're a great fisherman. So, man, I was glad that one worked out.
Well, one last thing I want to mention, because for me personally, it was one of the coolest moments. And I think it was one of the coolest moments for you too, because what you just mentioned stood out to me. You can see the truth on somebody's in their eyes. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys who I'm so happy to have a tight relationship with and is Bob Cobb. And I'm standing with Bob Cobb at the bar. And when I got to introduce you guys, and then I saw your reaction to, you just won the Bassmaster Classic and you're like, that's Bob Cobb. Yeah. To have him introduce, I think was an amazing moment for, I hope, everybody in that room. Yeah. But it had, what did that mean to you? To his voice is he's just such an amazing man.
Yeah, he doesn't realize the impression that he had on me, and just being, the voice of the show back then. But, before DVR days, the show came on, I think, at 9:00 on Sunday mornings, and you either watched it or you missed it. But you knew that voice, and no matter what you were doing, if you were in your bedroom or wherever, when you heard that voice come on TV, you knew what was following it. And I never missed a show that I never did something else. I may have had to, my parents may have had me doing something, but I always watched that show. And I can remember I was probably 9 or 10. And I remember setting an alarm for the show on Sunday. And I get up and literally run in there and jump on. And that's back in the day where you had to walk up to the TV and turn the dial on, you turn the dial and it's going off. The show is going off. And I'm like, I started crying because I had missed it and I couldn't figure out what it was. But what had happened is the time had changed.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I got the tail end of the show and I remember crying, but you just knew when that voice and in my head, I can think of so many introductions to the show that you match his voice with, like Larry Nixon, fighting. Yeah. Well, I can just so many of it and things like that. Back then I didn't know. I didn't even think about being a professional fisherman back then. Just, gosh, he did so much to make me want to go fishing and be out there, He's just cool, the old rough, raspy, and it was really proud. I was proud that he introduced me, even though that night I was the 2020 Bassmaster Classic. And he got the year wrong, but, the voice did it, and it sounded really cool. I won't ever forget that. I think Polnick got it on video. So.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. If not, I'll get Bob to call you up and say it to you.
Yeah.
We'll set up a call or something. He's an amazing man, and it was amazing to be able to – I watched him all. What the world doesn't know is bass fishing saved his life multiple times. You know what I mean? Like, it made his life. But Bob lost his wife several years ago, and he went in a real bad space. And that's why he wrote the book. And it's so cool to see. He was in the bass booth all week. And so every time I was in the expo on doing live, he's sitting there signing his book. And you're just like, man, the guy is got the energy to like stay up with all these people, but it's the Classic. It's a magical event for you winning it, for him coming back to it. It's a fun thing to be part of. But Jason Christie, I appreciate you being open with me here today. You're always open with me, but I think we talked about some different stuff. I didn't think we could, because you've been on every freaking podcast in the history of mankind. Yeah. But I'm glad we. And I don't mean that to be clear, because when you say something, people will be like, "Oh, dude, I know you would have done a podcast right away if we wanted to." If I pushed for, but it's I see what you guys go through, and I'm like, I feel bad for keeping you on a podcast tonight because it's nuts what happens when you win the Bassmaster Classic. But I think it gets even better if you win too. So,
ooh, that'd be so much fun. And that's the whenever I was being drove home from the Champagne's Toast by my friend, I remember that's the first thing I got in the truck. I shut the door. I looked back at the trophy, and I told Cooper, I was like, dude, I gotta have some more of that. Like after being a part of that night, and all of what happened, I was just like, I want me some more of that.
Hey, one last question though. Like, what did Hank Cherry say to you do you remember what he said to you? I always wonder or do you not want to?
No, I remember. So in the boatyard, he asked me, he walked up and he's like, what do you got? I was like, I don't know, 16 and a half. I said, honestly, I haven't even looked at it. And he was walking off, and I wanted to talk to somebody, and I wanted something to happen. I wanted to know is what it was. And I was like, dude, you can look at them if you want to. You can go back there and look at them. And he goes back and he looks at a few of them, and he kind of looks at me. He goes, you care if I weigh one? I was like, I don't care. So he weighs one. And all he did after he weighed them was walk by and pat me on the back. And I was like, what do you think? And he just kept on walking. And then whenever he come on the stage and he gave me the trophy, if I remember right, he pretty much said, I knew that you had it from looking at him earlier. So, and he, said good job and that kind of stuff.
It's an awesome experience, and I thank you for sharing a little bit of it with us. And I'll see you soon. Yeah. I'll see you soon. I'll be
too soon.
Oh well, I will be counting the moments to see you. Obviously, I feel a little different. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bassmaster Classic champion, whether it be 2020 or 2022, he is your champion, Jason Christie. Did I tell you that show would go in a different direction? I got to thank Jason Christie for being so open and so honest. And I think my favorite part of the entire show was when he talked about not seeing the confetti. So much stuff going on, and he didn't even see the confetti. That just shows you what a mind-melting, pressure-breaking event winning the Bassmaster Classic is. And Jason Christie is an awesome, awesome human, an awesome angler, and an awesome Bassmaster Classic champion. And I hope you think this has been a somewhat awesome chat, because I really enjoyed it, and I hope to see you back here again in the future every Wednesday, putting hump in your hump day, the awkwardly honest fishing podcast called Mercer. Take it away, Uncle Bob.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?